Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Rebecca, and you probably know me as a photographer. And if you listen to all the episodes of this podcast, you are probably aware that the first couple episodes were more personal growth, development, and interests. And then the last couple episodes have been a lot about creative projects. I really wanted to do a solo podcast for a long time, and I only just started this year, and there's like 6 episodes or something like that. And I was really resistant to making a photography podcast for all these different reasons. One is I'm still learning photography. I'm not trained in this. I'm literally figuring it out as I go. And I've only been taking photos for like 4 years. And I just kind of felt like an imposter making this type of podcast because honestly, what do I know about photography? Not a lot. I've been winging it like nonstop for the last couple years. But I see myself as, like, more than just a photographer. I have a lot of skills and interests that I wanna explore and that I wanna talk about, and I wasn't comfortable with limiting myself to just photography. But photography is the biggest part of my life, and I want to continue focusing on photography. I wanna continue to see how far my career goes, how my photos change over time. And so while all of those skills are really important, photography is the most important thing, and I do have so much to say about it, and it's just silly that I was refusing to do that. Why would I not use this podcast space to talk about photography? So, basically, I am rebranding this podcast to be a more creative photography-based podcast, and I am taking suggestions for a name because I'm really bad with names. And let's get the podcast started. But first, I would really like to thank my friend Imani Richardson for asking if I was going to do an episode on this. I planned on it. And I was probably going to wait until after I finished all the work I'm going to talk about. But I figured why not just do it right now? You know, good promo, good practice for as many times as I'm going to have to talk about it. So we're just going to do it now. I have an upcoming solo exhibition and we're gonna talk about it. The exhibit is called Faces of the Stony Shore. They are a series of environmental portraits, each paired with a biography, highlighting Shinnecock tribal members and places that matter to them. These biographies were written based on sit-down interviews and everyday conversations I had with them. Faces of the Stony Shore will be on display at Ma's house in BIPOC Studio. The opening reception is going to be Saturday, November 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. and it will be on view until February 14th. Ma's house is open Thursdays and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or by appointment. And I will post all of the details about the show and Ma's house in the notes of this episode. So just look for them, and that's how you will find the address and other things about Ma's house. Now, this project was a thing I've been thinking about for a really long time, and I just hadn't started. And it was also multiple projects that kind of ended up as one big project. The environmental portraits were inspired by a talk I went to at Huntington Arts Council here on Long Island. It was a photographer, and he was mostly talking to artists on the best way to photograph their art for portfolios and that kind of thing. But also he talked about how he does a lot of headshots for artists. And one thing about his portraits that I really loved is that most of them were in their studios. And I really thought they were just like these really beautiful photos that told a really strong story. And I talked to the lecturer afterwards, one on one, and he stressed how his photos really showed who the artist was. It's one thing to see a photo of the person, but it's another thing to see a photo of them in their space, like seeing how and where they work, how messy or how clean or cluttered or organized their spaces. You just learn a lot seeing someone in their element, and that was a thing I've been interested in and been thinking about doing for a long time. I want to be able to show Shinnecock people for who they are in the photo and not just what they look like. I want to be able to tell a story through like one single photo. And separately, obviously, I like podcasts and I like podcasting, and I think I could make a good podcast host if I tried. I work full time for the Shinnecock Indian Nation as the communication director, and that's a lot of emails and social media posts. But I thought it would be a really fun idea separately to interview Shinnecock folks, to like sit down with people who I thought had cool jobs, cool interests, cool hobbies, and just talk to them about that. And I thought it'd be a really cool idea, a video podcast. And I never did anything with either one of these ideas, the environmental portraits or the video podcast. But like, obviously, in all this time, I've kind of been experimenting and playing with techniques and technical aspects and really just kind of getting a little bit more comfortable with the idea of eventually maybe doing this project down the line. And the project is happening finally because I was awarded a grant. It was New York State Council of the Arts Support for Artist Grants, which was a $10,000 project grant. So Jeremy Dennis, who is the lead artist and founder of Ma's House, asked if I was interested in applying for this grant under Ma's House. I think it was like a two-part grant. So Ma's House was applying for a grant, and then they also wanted an artist to apply under them for like an exhibition. And at the time when he asked, I had just started applying for like grants and fellowships. I was just starting to take myself more serious as an artist and not just a photographer. And I wasn't getting them. I was just getting denied left and right on these grants and applications. So for this one, I, for some reason, was like, I'm going to get denied, but I'll use this as practice. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the application and the idea. And in that process of like figuring out what I wanted to apply, what would be my project, I was like, oh, this is a really good time to finally do those environmental portraits I wanted to do. But environmental portraits is, why would you give someone $10,000 to make portraits of people who they like kind of live nearby? So I figured that wasn't a good enough reason for a grant. It's not a big enough project. And I was just kind of typing away, making things up as I went along. And that's how the video interviews came into the project. I don't know, I just kind of thought it'd be a good enough reason, all of this, the project would be a good enough reason to get me out of my comfort zone and do these projects that I've been wanting to do and hadn't done. So why not just combine them into like one project? And so I wrote a bunch of stuff and I sent it to Jeremy, and I immediately forgot all about it and moved on with my life. And then months go by and I get an email from New York State Governor Kathy Hochul congratulating me on my project. Totally forgot. Like I said, had to dig through multiple means of communication with Jeremy to even figure out what I had written down. That's how much I forgot about it. And I really also want to thank the staff at Ma's House, especially Jeremy and the director of curation, Brianna Hernandez. Without them, I just wouldn't be the artist I am today. I don't think I would be an artist. I don't think I would consider myself to be an artist. I could still be a photographer and I could still be a really good client-facing photographer, but I don't think I would see myself as an artist. And there's a distinction there for me that I didn't write down enough in the script to figure it out right now, but maybe in another episode I'll talk the difference between being a photographer and being like a artist who is a photographer. Ma's House is just like great. It is a communal art space based on the Shinnecock Indian Reservation where I live here in Southampton in New York. It is also an artist residency program for BIPOC artists. It's an art studio, a library. It's an event space. They hold all these like art and history-based programs for Shinnecock tribal members and just like kind of the broader Long Island local community. You should absolutely check out Ma's House and support them because Ma's House supports artists like me, and it supports a lot of the people who are in my project too. So Ma's House is just a great organization. I love them so much. Now back to the project. So like I said, Faces of the Stony Shore is a multi-part project whose primary focus is a series of environmental portraits of Shinnecock tribal members in an environment that reflects their passion. And then the photos are paired with a bio for caption, and that information that I wrote in the caption comes from formal sit-down interviews I had with them and also just everyday conversations I've had with them. And the photo portion was, like, the easiest. I I would not refer to myself as a professional photographer, but I do know my way around the camera, and I'm very comfortable with it, and I'm, like, 99% of the time very happy with the photos that I take. I still have a lot to learn. Like, I just signed up for a flash workshop. I'm gonna figure it out. Um, but, like, I'm a good photographer, and so the photo part wasn't the biggest, scariest thing for it. It wasn't the thing I was stressed out about. The video interviews were. That was the part I was really stressed out about because I'm still learning videography. I have video experience. If you listen to those last couple episodes, you know that I had a big video project and I practiced a lot of video for powwow, and then there's been other video projects I've worked on. I have some experience, but I'm not the most comfortable with it in the equipment, and I think a lot of the times, especially during this project, I let my nerves get the best of me, and I would rush, so I wouldn't always have the best setup, or, like, I'd forget something, or, like, something would be off a little bit. There's room for improvement. I am a capable enough videographer for this project. Maybe not for professional, but, like, I didn't need these videos to be professional and perfect. They just kind of needed to get done. It just needed to look and sound good enough that if I chose to put it on YouTube, which I'm still thinking about, and I do have to talk to all the people who I interviewed to see if they're really comfortable with being on YouTube. But, like, if I decide to post these videos online, I need to be comfortable with how they look and sound, and I don't wanna be embarrassed. Also, if I'm posting this, you think I care that much about video? I kinda wanna make a separate video about my solo podcast setup. I have all this really good camera equipment, but I wanna be able to sit at my desk and talk into my computer, and the best setup I can figure out with that is, like, an Insta360 Link 2, which is a webcam. That is a really good webcam, but for some reason when I record with it, it just looks weird and laggy. I feel like this doesn't look good. I feel like my mouth is not syncing up to my words, and I cannot figure out how to fix it. But obviously, I don't care that much if I'm posting this. So, like, my videos just needed to be at minimum this decent, and they do look better because I'm filming them with a real camera. But I've also come to terms with I don't need my videos to be the most professional. I'm not getting paid to take videos. I don't claim to be a videographer. I'm kinda just I have some video skills if I need it. But really, the biggest thing and the scariest part about it was the interview because I don't have that skill in the slightest. I can talk, and I know what a good host should sound like for the most part, but I also don't have those skills. I was originally a journalism major in college, and I didn't take nearly enough classes before switching to cinema and cultural studies. I was a journalism major for 2 years, and in those 2 years, I think I only 4 semesters. In 4 semesters of being a journalism major, I think I took 2 journalism classes in my 4th semester, and that's what made me switch, and none of them were about interviewing. It was all just very boring writing and history stuff, and just didn't learn any journalism actually when I was a journalism major. And then for another weird reason, and maybe if I say this, I'll get some good suggestions, but I really, really struggle finding good resources online on journalism. I only ever see degree programs. I don't see like workshops or fellowships or anything like that. So like if anybody knows anything, just like give that to me. I want to be a better journalist. I want to be a better interviewer. I want to get better at writing. So if anybody has any suggestions, give me those. In the meantime, I'm going to keep listening to podcasts like Good Hang with Amy Poehler, Why Won't You Date Me with Nicole Byer, and So True with Caleb Heron. Those are my 3 goats of podcasts that I listen to because I love the vibes of those interviews, and that is what I want. I want them to be these really honest, meaningful conversations, but I want them to be light and fun and like nice to listen to, and I want there to be laughing and stuff like that. So yeah, the interviews were scary. And there was a lot of kind of like prep that went into them. Like I would write down questions ahead of time, but then I wasn't totally sure if I liked the questions. And I had them on my phone. And I think I want to get index cards. You know, you know how like when you watch Maury and he's got them index cards? I want that. Just next question. Because I feel like when I'm looking at my phone, I'm not reading them all. Like if I have them, it just doesn't work out. But I think I did a pretty decent job with it. I wanted to have a fun conversation with people, but to know a lot about them. And a really good example of this is a lot of my subjects were artists. And so I asked them to describe themselves. I wanted to know what they thought of themselves as an artist. I wanted to know how they learned about their specialty. I wanted to know what inspired them, what their work system was like. But I also asked them all about nicknames and hobbies and other outside interests and family life and, what they do. I wanted these interviews to be informal, but also just nice to listen to. Some of the interviews were podcast style where I was like sitting next to people in their houses. One of the videos, the interview with Shanae, for example, was filmed for the Long Island Children's Museum. Honestly, when I talked to her in April, we just did that interview there for that video, which was like a completely separate video. That video was all about the Machine by Project, is about Shanae. There's that where I have these questions that someone else came up with. And then another one of the interviews I had to do in my house because there's just too many people at their house. And I wanted to be able to kind of have like their undivided attention for an hour. So like the situation was always changing. I don't have formal interview experience and I don't naturally have that skill of really good conversation and being curious, I guess, like on the fly, coming up with a question and just asking it right then. I don't really have that. And then there was like all this self-imposed pressure when I was doing the interviews where I was just stressed out. Like, am I being annoying? Am I talking too much? Am I not talking too much? Am I laughing too much? Is it okay to laugh? I'm not good at like steering a conversation to get people back to focus, or at least that's how I feel about it. So the interviews were kind of very scary and weird for me. But one of the people I talked to that I interviewed, he asked me afterwards if I had experience with the interviews, if I was like a journalist, because he thought I did a really good job. And I'm accepting the compliment. I'm taking it in. I'm feeling better about myself. He thought I was good. He knows what he's talking about. But I could still be better and I'm still learning. And there's still time to get better at this. And then the last part was the bios. And those were just kind of difficult. Honestly, I thought everyone was so incredibly interesting, but some of them, it's like, how do I tell this story in like 150, 200 words? In general, always feel maybe that I'm not the strongest writer. If you had asked me when I was up until I was like 25, what is your artistic skill? I would have been like, I'm a writer. But kind of, I don't know, maybe this style of writing is kind of weird to me and it's new to me and I had to figure that out. I'm still right now writing those captions. Like I said, I'm not really finished with the project. It opens in like a week and a half and I'm still working on it, but I feel pretty good about the captions I've written. The other captions I haven't really started because I'm just like, oh, where do I even start? Uh, but I did like it. And like no one's proofed it. No, I haven't heard any feedback on that. I've heard feedback on the photos at this point. I've heard feedback on my interview style. Not heard any feedback on the captions, but I feel like I'm good at them. I just feel like I'm good at researching to my own little research skill. I'm figuring it out. But one of my favorite things about this project in general was I got to learn so much about the people that I spoke to. Some of them I knew pretty well before, and then others were like much newer relationships that I didn't have at all. But no matter if I knew them, if I just kind of started talking to them for this project, I was able to develop these like much stronger relationships with them. One of my absolute favorite things about being Shinnecock is this feeling of community and family that we have. And I really just fostered community and family doing these interviews. They really weren't just like a one time, like I hit them up, hey, I want to put you in this project. Can I get like 2 or 3 hours of your time? I want to interview you and take a photo. I did honestly spend so much time with these people, and I really just developed a better bond, I think, with all of them in the last year. I just want to say I've spent so much time with Chuck Quinn, and it all came from this project. And at the time of filming this, I still haven't gotten his interview done, but we've had so many conversations, and sometimes I record them on my phone and sometimes I don't. I have so much information in my head about this man and about oyster farming. He's been showing me oyster farming, and that's so cool, man. And we've just like really bonded over so much. And it all came from me being like, I think Chuck Quinn might be a really cool person to have in this project. I kind of know him a little bit. We've talked a couple times, but I don't really know him that well. And now I do. I know him pretty damn well. And I really love that. And I'm so happy that I get to like share these beautiful Shinnecock people and their skills and their stories with the world. It's a thing I talk about a lot, about how I'm just really kind of grateful that people trust me with this, with their stories, with their faces, with their images, with their skills, with their art. And they just trust me to share them and to show them in the best possible light that I can. So it's been incredibly meaningful to me to do this project, honestly. And I also want to point out that this isn't the end of this project. Not by a long shot. Recently, I was taking a fellowship through the Seven Foundation. It was, I think it was called like Visual Storytelling for Indigenous Photographers or something like that. And the whole point of the class was like really learning photo essays and how to tell a story through a series of photos. And there was another student in my class, and his photo essay was kind of similar to mine, where we were documenting our tribal nation and our homelands and our history and stuff like that. My photo essay was about Shinnecock people and how we use the water. And I might make another episode about that, but I'm also past it now. So who knows? I was doing this big essay on Shinnecock people in the water, and he was doing a big essay on Standing Rock and land treaties. One thing that he said about his project is that he would be working on that photo essay until he could no longer press the shutter button. I will be working on this project as long as I physically can. As long as there are Shinnecock people, as long as I can tell a story, I will be telling Shinnecock people's story because I love them so much. There were a number of people that I talked to being in this project, and I just wasn't really able to include them this time around. In fact, one of the people texted me today and was like, "Did you still want to interview me?" Yes, I do. But for this specific iteration of the project, going into Ma's house, November 2025 to February 2026, I just couldn't get him in. I just couldn't put everyone who I had in mind in this project because of the space of the project. I could only fit so many pictures in that exhibit space. But one of the things that I wrote down when I was applying for the grant was that I wanted to eventually combine these photos and these stories into a coffee table book that I could sell. I can't do a book off of 7 people, but I can do a book on like 20 something people. And I can do a second book on another 20 people. I'm just going to be working on this forever. And there's so many people who I want involved in this project, who I want to interview and I want to photograph. And I have tens and tens of names that I could think of off the top of my head. If you weren't in this project and you think I should be in this project, you will be in this project eventually. I promise. I had such a good time working on this project. I had so much growth in photography, in videos, in interviewing, in storytelling, and writing. There was just all these aspects of this project. What people are looking at is just a portrait project. But It was so much more, and it was so fulfilling to me, and I'm really excited to share it with the world, and I just really want to invite everyone once again to the opening, and if you can't make the opening, at least come and see the show while it's out. I'll probably start posting more on socials, like some sneak peeks, but you know what? Seeing that photo on your phone is not gonna be as good as seeing that photo. How big did I think I got them? I think I got them 24 by 36 or something. They're huge giant prints. So you have to see them in person if you can come see them. So come see them. I would like to thank every single person who has supported this journey, the staff at Moss House, all the people in my photos, everyone who has showed interest in it. Thank you so much. Thank you to Shinnecock in general for raising and loving me and being my muse and everything to me. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you can come see the show, and we will talk soon. Thanks.